off the cuff with WAPTEC. I'm going to have to pull my hat off here so I can hear. I see around everything by hearing it. Off the cuff, meaning I don't have any text in front of me. I don't have any information. I'm going to be doing this from memory. Saw a couple of someone posted a question about Sun Simulator under some other video. And he says, I don't understand the answer you gave me and I can't trust it. That's a perfectly legitimate response. He's looking up Nibiru's Sun Simulator, basically anything you see in the sky, and noticing something simple on his channel. He's like, I don't know what this is, but I'm noticing the sun sitting in a location in the background that doesn't match with my experience growing up. Now, here are the main causes for this. Now, I'm in a city called Portland, Oregon, and Portland has 5 quadrants. What that means is part of the town is not organized with roads that go north, south, and east and west. That's it. It's even worse if you're in certain areas. London, oh my God, I don't even know how you guys navigate. I mean, literally, cab drivers in London think in 5 dimensions, I'm sorry. But the only place I know of in the Americas, well, okay, in the United States, not America, is, well, besides San Francisco, okay, hundreds of cities, but one of the worst ones is Washington, D.C. with its spoked wheel bullshit. To confuse people. You move, I'm not kidding, 2 blocks. North and south and east and west don't match the road sometimes, depending on where you are. I'm in part of Portland, northwest Portland, where part of the town has got the angles wrong, and you get these little sliver blocks that are, I mean, they're waste areas mostly because no one wants to put a building there because nothing's squared up. And where I'm at, where I sleep at night at camp, the road is by necessity at an odd angle. It's not 45 degrees or anything like that. So here's how you do this. And it's not easy. And if you're willing to spend a year doing Sun Simulator or Nibiru videos about moon and sun and that sort of thing, if you're willing to go out and try to get a recording and even buy a camera that'll eliminate some of the light problems or make it to where you can get a better look at that lens flare that you figured out is actually a better size indicator for actually how big the sun is supposed to be. Here are your problems you're going to have to deal with. Sorry, but you're going to have to do it. Now, all respect to Daz the cameraman, but he needs to do literally a cameraman video on how to properly film the sun, the moon, and stars with a camera and how to get around the limitations in them. So here we go. Most cameras autofocus and auto white balance. What that means is they will change what white, red, green, and blue are, and every other color of the rainbow, to make the image look what it thinks is better. This is the worst version of artificial intelligence you'll ever run into, but it generally works. It'll also change the contrast, and it will also change, unfortunately, the focus. But this is the stupid part about it is, every once in a while you'll look at a lens flare, and off to the side, usually you'll have a light source here and you'll have a lens flare over here. If you're lucky, it'll be in a dark or a white background where you can get a reference point for color. And it might be blue or pink, purple, or deep sky blue. And that may be the optics in the glass, the coatings on them, the white balance, and it could also be the focus changing how big the dot is. But that weird little tiny copy of the sun, or whatever light source, may actually be a better indication of how big the sun is. Now, the only way to get this to be standardized is you'd have to go out when the day is literally exactly the same brightness level where you're pointing the camera at. Or, and that's not going to happen, or have a camera that you can force its shutter speed or its effective iris setting or brightness settings to a specific value so you can do this. Or, and this is the way you actually do it, you get a gas blowtorch grade welding goggle plate. That's the way you do it. And that'll give you an accurate diameter visually for the sun, as long as you put it right over it. Now, this will also create lots of extra lens flares, so watch out for that. Don't assume you're seeing, oh, I'm seeing something weird. Take the camera and tilt it and rotate it, like that. If you see it move with your camera instead of your subject matter, it's in the camera. Next thing, cover up the light source. I'm covering my right eye. This is my right eye. I have the image flipped. Cover up the light source and see if the lens flare stays there. It might. You need to check these things. So here's how you do it on a day-to-day basis. Astronomy is a long, trudging It's like watching golf in slow-mo, okay? You'd have to spend a year, wherever you live, observing on every day of the year where the sun rises and sets reliably. Do the best you can. And if you get an anomaly where the sun is setting where it shouldn't be, just make sure you had a previous setting that's correct for the angle. And the way you record these angles is by literally fixing a camera or fixing two lined up items like a shooting sight, and you figure out the angle on a rotating bench. And you have to make sure you don't move the bench for a full year. Yeah. You can also cheap out if it's a bright sunny day and you can get a shadow out of it, and use a sundial that also you cannot move. Now, the easiest way to do this in a house, if you have a house, go to the top floor if you have a good view of the east, west, north, or south, and make notes from there by having on a window, just pick one, don't move it, a straight up line that you will line up as best you can with it, and use that light filter so you don't blind yourself, and try to figure out where it is. You may have to use two of these filters. On a camera, it doesn't really matter. You don't care if you hurt the camera, but your eyes are very important, so don't damage them. And you use a light filter like that. Now, alternatives for human eyesight: you can use exposed film sometimes as a filter. You sometimes can use a floppy disk or some other things for it. Now, the other method for doing the angles is to make a light box that literally, it's a pinhole camera where you can see the sun over here. You can even look at the way the sun looks with a white sheet of paper and get the angle exactly right to where you've zoomed it in or zeroed it in and do the angle that way. Now you have to create your own almanac and get an almanac and compare them. Now, here's the problem with this. No matter where you are, north, south, east, and west magnetically are not going to match exactly what they're supposed to be on a map. Maps use an idealized version of the Earth where there are no magnetic anomalies. Find out where actual north is in your local space. And if you're above the equator, above meaning north of the equator, the sun will always be to your south. It's always more towards the equator, unless you're close to the equator, in which case it'll be above your head. Now, why am I bringing this up? One of the most common things people do when they think they've seen some anomaly in the way the sun is positioned is they don't answer a simple question. Did you recently move or change which room you stay in? Why do you want to know that? Because when you move, you alter your way of viewing the world. I did this before in another video, but I grew up in a town that has exactly the same arrangement as Portland, Oregon. It's just that it's flipped north to south. And for the first 8 years, I literally got north and south confused. And I don't go back to my hometown because it gets confusing more. And even now, as I think about it, because the river's on one side, and then there's a hills, and there's a higher hill range over here, and the majority of people are on one side of the river versus the other, and one of them's more of a flat plain versus hills, I still have this problem of getting this stuff backwards again. It won't go away. So someone's asked, which way is north? And that way. I get it wrong, and I'm 50. All right? And I was taught how to do observation and stuff like that, too. Everybody screws up. So if you are seeing an anomaly in the sky, first thing first, don't assume something local to your universe is happening just yet. And also don't assume that it's some sort of fake, a holographic sun simulator. And if you have people trolling you, no, don't listen to trolls telling you to keep an almanac and a diary for a year and actually make some measurements and find out whether or not it is actually an anomaly. If someone tells you don't pay attention to people like me telling you how to double check things, you should be suspicious of them. Especially if they have any kind of GoFundMe pages or if they squeal really loudly that they're on your side and hey brother, we're all part of, name that religion or belief system or political party or ideology or whatever. Now, I'm a flaming atheist and I'm a liberal. But every other year, I at least used to, vote Republican and Democrat back and forth every time there was a presidential election because I didn't want either party to have 2 years, 2 presidencies in a row for each party. So that gives you an idea. Your best bet when it comes to this sort of thing is the same thing people had to do when they tried to figure out how the world worked in the first place. Observe things, write them down, and then come to a conclusion. If you are going to the point you're already talking about, they keep putting the fake sun simulator in the sky and it's harassing me. If you're already that far, I can't help you. You've already been tricked by the powers that be or alt-facts people on the internet, or trolls, into thinking that there's a universe you're in, that you're being harassed by the position of the sun or the moon or the stars or whatever. Then no, I'm not kidding about that. The hardest thing in the world to understand is if you're feeling persecuted or messed with, someone trying to persecute you or mess with you is going to do it by making you think you're being persecuted or messed with. And then they're going to wander off and let you drive yourself insane for the next 10 years without ever coming near you. Again, me simply moving from one town to another in the same state and having the town arranged in a way that almost matches exactly the other town, except it's literally flipped 180 degrees, messes with me X number of decades later. Nobody did this on purpose. It's not some sort of harassment or anything, but it does mess with me. Now remember, no one planned that. No one's trying to mess with me. No one arranged one town to be opposite of the other just to screw with people. That doesn't make any sense. But it still fucks with me because I get disoriented pretty quickly. Well, only when people ask me which way north is. And especially where I camp. I'm a homeless person, if you don't know. And where I'm camping, the roads aren't straight. They aren't lined. They crisscross each other twice in some cases. No, I'm not kidding. We have a zigzaggy road. And some of you live in countries where that's the norm. I don't know how you guys deal with it. I think most people in most countries just figure out which way north, south, east, and west is and base it on the terrain. And that can be deceptive too, but it's okay. I grew up in a eastern Oregon desert, which is that way. I think I got it right. And that's how we navigated. And we always knew the hills, if they look like they're a mile away, it's 10 miles, or it's at the horizon. You're not going to reach it. You know, it's a desert. You're going to get things wrong. We learned not to trust our senses unless we quadruple checked ourselves, because going the wrong direction or going off on a tangent could end up with you being in deep trouble or even getting hurt, maybe even dying. And that's just being a ranch kid, which I wasn't really a ranch kid for very long, but I got to be a ranch kid for a little while. And a desert rat for a little while. And a survivalist for a long time. And I've learned to understand that people will take advantage of you if you're confused at the time and just screw with you over the internet. So if you're having trouble figuring out literally what is going on with this world, why does the sun look different, and everything seems different, it's probably because you're in a different area. I'm going to bring up one more. People saying the sun isn't supposed to be literally white colored. Actually, it is. It's how we define white, the sunlight from the sun. That actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it for a second. But then people say the sun is supposed to be yellow, and then they'll invoke some bizarre, unrelated thing like God said so, or that's the way it's painted in pictures. If you're not aware of this, most people use canvases that are matte white colored. So painting a negative space white dot to represent the sun requires that you paint around it. It's just easier to paint another color in there, like yellow as a reference point, and usually that's left up. It's just a yellow sun. You can have sunsets that are red and orange. You can even have streaks of purple and whatever that are completely normal and natural. It's not caused by anything bad being done to the air. It's just the atmosphere filtering light because it does, just like a prism will. That's why we have rainbows. But then you can look up, and this is the serious thing you can look up, a lady screaming on camera about how water making a rainbow in her backyard for her spraying it indicates it's chemicals in the water. Not kidding. And other people saying after a rainstorm it shouldn't have a rainbow with all the colors in it the way they thought they should be. Or should be, excuse me. And shouldn't be the ones that are missing. Because rainbows don't include all the colors you can technically see. They only include the colors that rainbows make. We perceive colors differently than the light spectrum actually does, for the most part. Which is good. And by the way, if you're not aware of it, some of you out there can actually see partially into the infrared and ultraviolet light, so you might actually have a very different experience. Some of you do actually have that ability. I hope you don't mind, but God, that would drive me crazy. So anyway, next. You'll find lots of people on the internet that will egg you on and let you stay ignorant of your own inability to recognize things or be able to test things. The reason we use science these days is you can use and abuse science to get rid of these ambiguities. That's what I'm recommending. If you don't want to take my advice, that's fine. I'll leave a couple of links if I can find them on how to start doing a sun observatory. And yeah, cloudy days are going to make this a problem. You're not going to get a complete record of everything. But it's a lot better than being driven crazy by doubt and ignorance. And I had to say that word, because someone out there is going to milk you for it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And don't take any wooden realities.